telling you some like people from my hometown who have killed people. Don't know why I decided to title it that. I thought I'd start out with one of your questions. This question is from Twisted Lemniscate. She asked me to cover the Unabomber. So here goes. The Unabomber was born in Chicago, Illinois in 1942. He was a pretty normal kid, though he was a child prodigy. He was like super smart. He actually went to Harvard when he was 16. And then he ended up an assistant professor at the University of California, Berkeley by the time he was 25. In 1971, he moved up to a cabin that had no electricity and no running water, just so he could live off the land, because he was a neo-Luddite. A neo-Luddite is somebody who does not like modern technology. As far as he was concerned, he thought the Industrial Revolution was just one big mistake, and we should go back to the time when life was simple and we were not a slave to these machines around us. 7 years after that, in 1978, his house in the surrounding forest was torn down in the name of development, which made him incredibly mad, and he felt the need to find some way to let out his anger. So he built another cabin in Montana, and this is where he started sending out bombs. From 1978 to 1995, he was one of America's most wanted for being a domestic terrorist. The return address on a lot of the bombs came from Chicago, and most of the first bombs he was sending were all within Illinois, so it was all being handled in-house. However, after a few bombs, he decided to send one via airmail, and it ended up on a commercial American Airlines flight, and it was set to rig at 35,000 feet. It would go off, but it didn't blow, it just smoldered and sent a smoke through the entire cabin, and they had to land and let everybody off before they could figure out what the heck was going on. Everyone was like, oh, okay, well then it was just dud, it wasn't really that good of a bomb. But the thing was, if you actually looked at the bomb, it had barium nitrate in it, which is not an explosive. All it does is make fireworks green. So when Ted Kaczynski made this, he made it specifically so it would only scare people, which is again part of his psychosis. He just wants to scare people to return to the way he thinks that they should be. But because this package crossed state lines, the FBI and the US Postal Service got involved trying to find out who this was. To give the suspect a specific name that they could address him by while they were still looking for him, his first few bombs were sent to universities, to people who he believed were helping to move humanity forward towards more technological advancements and more slavery to technology. And then his latest bomb was sent to an airline. They decided to call him the University and Airline Bomber, or for short, Unabomb. And then once the press got a hold of it, they added that B-E-R on it, so Unabomber. Despite the fact that the FBI, the US Postal Service, and many local police officers were looking for this guy, it took them 18 years to find it, because these guys would get a little clue, these guys would get a little clue, these guys would get a little clue, and they weren't sharing because everyone wanted the arrest for their department. As far as they were concerned, they didn't have to share information with somebody else because they were the best ones who were looking at it, and everybody else could just go home because they were going to find it. Through most of his years of sending out bombs, he was just trying to scare people. It wasn't until the last 2 years that he was out and free that he actually started hurting people. Maybe because he'd become overconfident over the years, or maybe somehow he absolutely believed that these 3 people needed to be stopped and he was the man to do it. David Galerter was the first to be sent one of the Unabomber's actually deadly bombs. By some miracle, after having a bomb explode in his face, he was able to get out of his apartment, down 5 flights, and a couple of blocks to the medical services where he got some help. And he's alive today because of his determination. However, Thomas Moser and Gilbert Murray were not so lucky, and they died the second the explosion went off. It was very soon after that, however, that the Unabomber sent his manifesto to the New York Times and the Washington Post, which ended up being his downfall. The person who was happy and yet very sad to end this reign actually ended up being Ted Kaczynski's little brother, David. After reading the manifesto in the paper, he started noticing that there are some things in the manifesto that his brother said all the time, and he started to say, oh my goodness, this might be my brother. So David Kaczynski asked the personal investigator to compare the manifesto to a piece of writing that he had of Ted Kaczynski's. She brought in several different experts in writing styles and speech patterns, and found that the 2 documents were written by the same person, and said, who is it? So he said, I think it might be my brother, but I don't know how to bring it to the FBI without becoming like the middle of a circus, because 1, I don't want my big brother to know that I was the one who turned him in, and 2, I don't want my life and my wife's life to turn into a circus. So if there's a way we can do this, anonymously and have him and the world never know, that would be awesome. So they turned to an attorney and they worked it out with the FBI. And very soon after that, the FBI leaked it to the media. FBI, sometimes they let us down. And because they now had a suspect for who this might be, they went to Montana, they staked out his cabin, and they were able to figure out that yes, it was Ted Kaczynski and arrest him. And 2 years later, on January 22nd, 1998, Ted Kaczynski was sentenced to 4 life sentences and sent to jail. He was actually up for the death penalty, but his lawyer advised him to plead guilty, which he did. So then he was able to live with no chance of parole ever, but he will be able to live in prison and just do whatever he wants for the rest of his life and just be away from the rest of us, which I think is the best course of action. Especially since it was found after he went to jail that he was actually a paranoid schizophrenic and he should have been monitored and on medication for years. Some of you may be wondering, why am I talking about this guy during this hometown area week when this guy's from Chicago and I live in upstate New York? The reason why is because everyone seems to think that he's from here. I don't know why. But I've actually been to one of my best friend's high schools. There's actually a wall where a bunch of kids signed their names and said, oh, we're BFFs and this is our clique. And then someone has just written Ted Kaczynski on the wall as well, which can only be there for one of 2 reasons. Either one, some random kid thought, well, if he was in this area, then he definitely would have gone to this school, so he just wrote his name up on the wall. Or 2, there's some poor guy who lives in this area who just happens to be named Ted Kaczynski, and everyone's just saying, yeah, that's totally the Unabomber. In either case, it's completely unfounded, it makes absolutely no sense, but when it was shown to me, it was literally like, look, the Unabomber went here. He went to school with my mom. No, he didn't. My parents have told me that the Unabomber lived here. My best friend has told me that the Unabomber lived around here. Her mom is convinced that she went to school with her. But I'm so confused as to why my hometown feels the need to imbue this area with another serial killer. I've actually found this week that we actually have 4 others that are actually homebred here. So why would we want 5? Why do you think that we've got this going on? I'm so confused as to why this was even being told to me as a true fact when it's definitely not. What do you guys think is going on? Tell me in the comments below what you think, because I literally cannot think of a possible reason as to why people are assuming the Unabomber is from here when he's not anywhere close to here. I absolutely love you guys. My scoops are beautiful. Please remember to like, favorite, and subscribe, and I will see your beautiful faces. Beautiful? Who says beautiful? I will see your beautiful faces tomorrow. Bye. Mwah.